Hello, my name is Mr. Bates, and today we're going to be looking at making better revision activities. The thing we're going to be looking at today is what we call summarising. What do I mean by summarising? Well, it is looking at something and then reducing it to the minimum number of words, but keeping the maximum amount of meaning of that thing. Okay, it's a useful trick. We need to be doing that because there's lots of information. We need to reduce that down to try and learn it. All right, so let's have a look at an example of this. A while ago, we made a reusable testable revision activity, and there's our information there. It's already quite reduced down, but when I made the revision activity, I then reduced that down a little bit more. So if we have a look here, nucleus, got quite a few words there. I then reduced it to less words, what I thought was the important bits. Did the same for the electron shells. And the same for the atom there. So each time I read that, I tried to make it small, choose the important parts. Over here on the right, we've got some notes on how to summarise. Well, there's quite a lot to read there, isn't there? Luckily, I've summarised that for you. You first of all need to select the information, and that's selecting the important information, the important words and phrases. Then go back and reject the unnecessary words. So you're sort of double checking, have you got everything in there? Can you get, what exactly can you get rid of? And the last thing it says there is to rephrase what you've now got. So you now have the important bits, and what you need to do is rephrase that so that it makes sense to you. Let's look at that process. Select, reject, rephrase. So first of all, selecting, I'll be reading through, and then I think, right, well, there's three main steps, so that's important. It's to select the most important thing. So I'm highlighting that. And then reading through, and then it says I need to decide what parts are not needed, what I can get rid of. You get down to the bottom there, it talks about how we now need to rewrite it in as few words as possible that makes sense to you. So I've selected the important parts. The next part of summarising is to reject. So I'm going to go back through. I'm going to decide that, yeah, those words I don't particularly need. The main three steps in the process are, don't really need to say all of that. I don't think I need those bits there. I think I can do without that. And again, I'm looking through and I'm making decisions. And it says, you know, rewrite in as few words as possible that makes sense to you. So I need to make a decision. Do I think that's important to keep? I sort of decided that it isn't. But next part, I now need to rephrase this important information that I have. So I've got three steps. And I thought, well, the best way to rephrase that is not to actually write it, but just make it clear that there are three steps. I did that by sort of bullet pointing there. Next part was select the most important. I put that into my words, rephrased it. The next part is to decide which bits are not needed, which bits you can get rid of. So I called that rejecting the unnecessary words or phrases. And lastly, down the bottom there, it says to rewrite so it makes sense to you. So instead of rewrite, I chose rephrase. I think rephrase means that you write it in your own words. Rewrite, you could possibly just copy. So rephrase, I think, is a better word there. All right, so that is our three steps to summarising. Why is it important then to summarise? Well, the information that you read, the information that's given to you is really written down so that people understand that, but hopefully that everybody can understand. So what you want to be doing is writing it out in a way that you understand, and you should be doing that in as few words as possible. Okay, so that's why we're summarising. Want it in a way that you understand, in as few words as possible. Another reason why summarising is good to do during your revision activity, because if you're just copying the information out, even if it's not a lot, if you're just copying it, we call that passive, and if it's passive, there's a good chance that you're not really thinking about it. You're just copying. Whereas summarising, you having to do thinking. in each stage you're having to decide, make decisions, think about it, rephrase it. It's definitely thinking, and the more thinking that happens, the more learning that happens. Let's recap on that. How to summarise, we've got 3 phases: select, reject and rephrase. So I'm going to be asking you to summarise and to make a revision activity. You're going to be choosing some key facts from a knowledge organiser or somewhere else, and you're going to be making an activity. Before you make the activity, I would like you to summarise. So what does that mean? You're first of all going to be selecting. Here's the information. I've selected some of the key words. I've then gone through and rejected the ones I don't think I needed, and I've rephrased it, put it into my own words. Next part, I'm going to select the key words, going to reject the bits that I know I don't really need, and then rephrase that into my own words. And once you've done that, once you've decided on the important parts and how you're going to rephrase it, then you can make your activity. Now it's your turn. What I'd like you to do, if you have your revision activities that you've made before with you, I'd like you to have a look at those and decide, did you summarise? Did you already do that naturally? What I'd like you to do now is make a new one and again summarise, but this time be thinking about that process of summarising. Select, reject, rephrase. The activity that you make could be one of the separated questions from the answers, cut to cover, flashcards, diagram, or any of the other reusable testable activities. I just remembered something that a lot of you will find useful. When you're summarising, don't worry too much about making sure you've got absolutely everything. It's good just to summarise those key bits that you know are important. If you come across something that's really quite tricky and you don't really understand it at all, and you end up having to just copy it down, well, it's probably better to just leave that bit out. Don't get too hung up on, I've got to get every bit of information. What we're doing here is reducing it down into those important bits that make sense to you. Thank you for listening. I hope you find that useful, and good luck with your summarising.